Okay, I think we're getting to capacity. I'll give folks a few more minutes, and while I go ahead and do my introduction, I want to thank everybody for being here today. Definitely our panelists. I see more and more folks coming in. This is our monthly webinar series that we do in order to lift up and bring in different voices from across the state. I am the executive director. I am not Lily May. Lily May is taking a day. I am the executive director of the North Carolina Housing Table, and I am blessed and fortunate enough to be able to moderate this conversation today between some phenomenal speakers representing the Outer Banks, hoping to build more relationships across the state around housing policy. For those who aren't aware, the North Carolina Housing Table is a C4 and soon to be a C3 North Carolina Housing Table Institute organization that focuses on specifically housing supply policy. What essentially that means is I worked with lobbyists to basically introduce and bring forth legislation to help broaden housing policy in the state of North Carolina. I have been fortunate. We are now at, I think, 12 months. I think we're about 11, 12 months in. And I had told my colleague Lily May, I said, we've been having these conversations with the western portion of the state, and we're moving into doing a dinner and conversation event in Asheville area. And I said, I really want to lift up and get in contact with some voices in the Outer Banks, because I came to the state around the time that Florence happened and all the things. And I thought there could be a really interesting conversation about how we build, how we approach housing, how we think about these things in an intersection between the western portion of the state and the eastern portion of the state. And so, but I wanted to make sure we had a space to be able to give some of the leading voices in that area a dialogue, and hopefully lift you all up to get a platform and speak, and we can have some continual dialogues that we can lift up moving forward. So with that being said, I am grateful today that I have been able to, my colleagues have been able to gather some phenomenal voices today. I have Chris, Monica, and Mike, who I'll allow to introduce themselves as they come forward to speak and talk about their work, because I'm learning like everybody else. And today's dialogue is simply to kind of deal with an intersection of policy, community, and coastal development, to uncover some collaborative strategies that address housing challenges in the Outer Banks. And also, I want to mention I did environment and climate for a while when I first came to state, working for another organization called Dogwood Alliance. I was staying in Wilmington for a while. So very interested in how we intersect environment resilience, local needs, and some equitable growth. So with that being said, I think we're pretty much at capacity. I think I gave my pretty good snazzy introduction. Oh, see a couple more people logging in. I am going to grant the first tip of the hat over to Chris, and I'll let him take it away and go through his introduction and walk us through some things. Chris, on you.
Thank you very much. My name is Chris Solon. I'm the CEO of the Outer Banks Community Foundation. We are an agency that has existed for over 40 years. It's one of the leading philanthropic resources in northeastern North Carolina. And our motto is common to a lot of community foundations across the country, but it's pretty simple. We connect people who care with causes that matter. So our job is to help people be generous, and we help them be generous on their terms. If they're interested in human needs, if they're interested in the arts, the environment, education, we are involved with their dream of helping other people and facilitating that. I wasn't exactly sure what my 10-ish minutes was supposed to be about, but I got a couple of thoughts just because we have immersed ourselves in at least learning about the housing issues facing our community. And there's, you can really summarize it into one easy sentence. Home values no longer match our workers' ability to afford them. It's math. I mean, there's a lot of depth to it, but that's just the simple reason. And for us, which is different than urban areas where Homelessness is more of an issue, different than the western part of the state where I am now, where a natural disaster has wreaked havoc on just about everything. But what I've learned across the country is every community has its own footprint. Our footprint has to do with four different types of home values. The first type of home value is the intrinsic value of the property itself, the land and the house. That's true here. That's true in every country. That's true everywhere. That's the core value. In addition to that, in our area, there's an income generating value as well. And this has to do with being able to rent a property to visitors, to residents, and to workforce. A third value is what I refer to as the dream value. If grandpa passed away and left you $5 million and you just have been dreaming about buying a beach house, there is a house for you to buy. There are people who just love the Outer Banks so much, they may not live here, but they've always dreamed of having a home here. And the last is more recent, and that is what I have heard referred to as workforce nomads, people who are able to do their jobs from anywhere. And this was really exacerbated by COVID, when attorneys, high net worth individuals of all kinds realized that not only could they work remotely, but they had to. And they realized that they could actually work from the beach and still have their job in DC or Pittsburgh or what other market they worked in. And what happened to even exacerbate it further was we just had record-setting visitor numbers in 2020, 2021, 2022. If you had a vacation planned to Paris the summer of 2020, you had to cancel it. You don't want to be on the underground. You don't want to be on an airplane. But we had sand, sunshine, salt water, all the things that were safe, outdoor, disinfected activities for a vacation. If you look at the trend line, and this is information that's been gathered by our local housing task force, and look at home values, it is a hockey stick graph. You look at 2000 to maybe 2017, 2018, and it was incremental growth, and then boom, it just shot up. And I'm sure Monica and Mike know all about this and have seen that. There was in that spike, there was an advent of cash buyers, sight unseen contracts, that kind of thing. People just wanted to be part of the Outer Banks. The slow growth from 2000 to 2015-ish, 2018, not only was it completely outpaced by other types of investments, like just a general stock market portfolio. At times, it was even behind inflation. So we've experienced what you can only describe as a crisis. You have something that's kind of predictable, and all of a sudden, it is not predictable. So we're all, I think, here to sort of understand how you move forward. And as many people I've talked to, the sad truth for a lot of folks is that the answer is density. You can't replace it, especially in an area where you're bound by an ocean and a large inland body of water. You can't just build out like Raleigh can. You can keep going farther out in Raleigh and other markets like that. We're kind of trapped. So density is an issue, but it is also politically untenable, which is a drag. If there were, and I'm not expecting there to be this, but if there were a concerted effort to encourage auxiliary dwelling homes, maybe even a tax incentive to do so, not just allow them, but to encourage them, I think you'd see some progress in a way that other incentives maybe can't. I'll switch from that and just tell you a little bit about some of our recent work. We have provided 2 recent grants, one on Ocracoke Island and one in the northern beaches, for teacher housing through the Dare Education Foundation in the Northern Beaches, and then a group in Ocracoke that had previously had a structure that was for childcare. And when Ocracoke got their Head Start program for early childhood development, they realized that a better use of that space was for teacher housing. Unfortunately, we have a limited number of assets. We cannot do everything. Every time we have a grants meeting, we run out of money. There's never enough money to meet the need. So our role has been in the front end, feasibility studies, helping with architectural designs, the planning stage. We have not, since 2000, been able to make a large grant for the actual cost of construction. The third one is just recent. This summer, we initiated a new grant cycle, which is for a single award of $50,000. It's called the Impact Grant. And the focus of the grant was for human needs, and it included healthcare, childcare, housing, substance abuse. So we got a variety of applications, and the one that we liked the best, or that our committee liked the best, was a housing project that was initiated by the Roanoke Island Presbyterian Church. So they are the recipient of this first-time award. And I think that our committee really gravitated towards it because not only were they doing those preliminary activities such as planning, architectural feasibility, but they also had a pledge to themselves and to anybody who supports them to design a model, to put together a blueprint for other churches, other houses of worship, or not, other entities that wanted to take land that maybe was underutilized and show how you could go through the steps to turn it into some sort of workforce housing. So we're very hopeful on all three of these, but none of them are done yet. And so we have faith. We're taking a risk. The other thing, and this is just something that I've done by volunteering to do it. I had 2 facilitation sessions with the folks who are on the Dare County Housing Task Force to help them lead them through a conversation about how they can take what was once a county function, which turned into a community function, and now they want to start a nonprofit. So there's sort of soft gifts like that are not necessarily cash gifts, but other ways that we hope to help that equation. And then the last thing I want to mention is we get a lot of information about what's happening in other parts of the country as it relates to philanthropy. What can philanthropy do? And again, I'll try and distill it down into one idea, and it's part of the title of this session, and that's collaboration, partnerships. You look at there's an amazing large-scale 200+ unit project that's happening in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and their partner is a Boys and Girls Club who had the land. They work with a nonprofit developer. Because they're close to a military facility, they petitioned the Department of Defense to help fund it in order to get to the point where it's actually feasible, as long as they guaranteed a certain number of the units for military housing. And the role of the community foundation, the Black Hills Community Foundation, was to be the last piece, maybe the 5 to 10% piece in the capital stack that made that possible. There's lenders, the commercial lenders involved, the funding had multiple layers. And I think that is where foundations tend to find their sweet spot, to be able to convene, to be able to share ideas, information, and then also to provide funding that could be a loan. It could be a low interest or no interest loan. It could be a grant. Something it's a loan that converts to a grant. So there's a lot of tools that a community foundation can use. Another one was in San Diego. They also had a partnership with their local transport. There was an unused railway facility in San Diego. They partnered to make that land happen. A lot of these are done through land trusts. There's a bunch of really interesting initiatives in Florida, one in Collier County, one in Fort Lauderdale, where they're working. I believe the founder of Dick's Sporting Goods has set aside $5 million for housing projects. And a lot of times they're government, private, and philanthropic trios that go at these things. So we have our eyes open for those opportunities should they come our way. But everybody told me the same thing that I talked to, the gentleman in South Dakota, the folks in Florida. It is a marathon, not a sprint. These projects take a lot of time. They take a lot of sharp elbows, a lot of quiet meetings with elected officials. It's not something that happens overnight, but if it's like making a diamond, if you just put consistent pressure on it, something really good can happen. So from the standpoint of philanthropy on the Outer Banks, that's sort of where we're focused currently. And I'm going to pass the mic back to you.
Thank you for that, Chris. It's exciting to hear. I was just at a conference in New Haven called Yimby Town, and some of those same dialogues came up about local, state, where philanthropy can fit in the intersection with policy making. And so I applaud the work that you all are doing, because I truly know it is definitely a marathon, doing this work and trying to get folks to see the vision of, working. And I love the component about trying to make space for essential workers so that folks can be able to have that live local effect as well. All right. I want to make sure to give space next to our next speaker. I'm going to turn it over to Monica. I'll let her introduce herself and the work that she's doing. Take it away.
Okay, thank you. Really appreciate this opportunity. I enjoyed listening to previous podcasts where you're really talking about the different areas and the different challenges that everybody is facing in different parts of our state and across the country. So it's a really great forum. Just a little bit of background about me. I've lived on the Outer Banks for almost 40 years, raised my family here. Originally from Washington, D.C., or grew up in D.C. I am an employer. I'm the managing owner of a sales and property management company here on the Outer Banks, Carolina Designs Realty, which manages about 350 vacation rentals. And we have a really great sales group as well. So very tapped into the rental market here for our vacation rentals, which is a big aspect of our economy here is tourism, of course. And so we, unlike some communities on the vacation rentals, we're very used to it. In fact, the Outer Banks is considered really a leader in vacation rentals. They sort of came on I think over time with VRBO and Airbnb, they've become more mainstream. But for the Outer Banks, it's been we have way more rental homes than we do hotels, for example. Some of that is due to our zoning here, which kind of limits the height, so we're not going to look like a Virginia Beach or an Ocean City. We're going to be low, not any high rises on the Outer Banks. And we've got other geographical challenges as well, because we don't have a lot of common area sewer systems. Most of our homes are on septic. So at any rate, I do manage, so I'm an employer. I have about 300, we have, as I said, 350 homes, but about a little over 50 year-round employees work for the company. And then we have seasonal workers that we swell to, over 350 of those, or 400 people that pop in and out and help us seasonally to care for these homes. So one of the larger employers definitely had housing and the welfare of the employees on my mind at all times. And then the other hat that I wear, instead of just a family person and a business owner, is that I've been on the town council of Duck almost since we became a town. We became a town in 2002, and the last little town on the Outer Banks to incorporate. And I've been on this town council since 2003. So I've really had a lot of years. It was a really interesting process becoming a town, seeing the services that we provide. But then also in Duck, we're very lucky because we've been able to really have a lot of really great projects and grow as a town. So we have wonderful public safety department, but then also environmentally, we've got a lovely park we've developed, a boardwalk. And so through those processes, I've learned a lot about government and just how it all works. So I kind of wear a lot of different hats in Duck. I'm also very involved in some community projects. And so as a Duck, I'm on the housing task force. And I've always been interested in housing one way or another. As it relates to my fellow citizens, but also particularly my employees. And so on this housing, I'm very glad to be participating in this housing task force that Chris mentioned. Dare County kind of started the effort and has turned it over to more of a consortium of representatives. So Dare County sits at the table along with at least one representative from each of the towns, some on the unincorporated Hatteras Island area, as well as community leaders in the education and the healthcare. We've got just a great group of folks led by the realtor, someone who works closely with the realtors, and Donna Creef as our chair. So we've got this really good group of people that are coming in together to talk about housing challenges. There's been some some things happening outside of our area, people that have studied us. ECU is doing a study or some work on just kind of polling the community to try to find out where the issues are for folks and where they're where the residents and where the workforce, where the out-of-town property owners, how they are all feeling in regard to housing. And we've got the challenges that Chris mentioned in terms of land. I can speak to Duck, but also the whole Dare County. We don't have a lot of extra land. In Duck, we're fairly developed, but several years ago, we became one of the first towns to initiate an ADU program. And I was really excited about that as I've followed housing along, just for the opportunity that we might have where, because our zoning is, these larger lots, because they have to accommodate a septic system in most cases. So we've got, kind of a lot of elbow room. We've got the setbacks, all the zoning that's coming in with the development. But in Duck, you are allowed to do an accessory dwelling unit. Now, we haven't had a ton of people take advantage of that, partly because a lot of the development, as I said before, has already been done. But folks that did have the wherewithal or were developing new and could, fit that into their plan, initially really have done well with that. It's lovely. Two of them on my street, as a matter of fact, newer construction. The problem comes on a house that might already be built and things. Oh, that's a great idea. And what I've seen, practically speaking, is the fact that they've already sort of set their house square in the middle of their lot, got their septic figured out, maybe added a pool, so now they don't have room to put the ADU. So those requirements, the limitations of the fact that they could, but they can't fit it. So those constraints have really held things back. So that kind of tells me that we're going to have to get a little more lenient on some of our zoning. And of course, not to get too in the weeds, but as a municipality, there's certain things we don't control. We are not health department, that's county. So health department is setting the septic rules. And of course, those are actually state. Zoning, we do have a little bit more control over, but if anybody is kind of following along with the state legislature, they really don't want the towns to over-regulate, and so even things like night lighting that we're worried about down here, we're keeping a little dark skies. People love our beautiful night skies. Even if we're, as a town right now, looking at those kind of regulations, wary of the fact that the state might think that's too much control. So municipalities are limited in what they can do, and Mike probably can speak to that as well in his conversation. So I look at these challenges we have of space in itself. There is government land, and it's been looked at as, hopefully in this committee, maybe allowing us to use some land that the government already owns because it's so scarce. There are also the idea of funding. How are we going to fund this? It's not anything, private contractors are not really incentivized at all to make it. There's no money in trying to give it away. You know, they've got to make their money, and of course costs are escalating all the time. So there is a component that has to come in with you know, with, as we say, philanthropy or with the government assistance, whether it be loans, but we have to come up with what the project is. And I think everyone really is getting their arms and their consensus right now around public safety or housing for our public workers, our teachers, our public safety workers, because we want those people to live and thrive in this community. We're also looking at, you know, here in Duck, we have a mostly second home ownership. They're going to be renting out their homes. We have a small population in Duck, maybe 700 on the voting rolls, but maybe only like 550 really live here. So I'm talking small in our 6-mile stretch of town. So there's a lot of homes that are just being used as rentals or as a second home. So, you know, we have room here, but we don't have you know, we don't, a lot of houses, but not anybody living in them year round. So we've got, but people can really get their arms around the idea of doing it for our teachers, for our police, our fire, and the workforce in general. I will go back to wearing the hat as an employer. I have myself and business purchased homes for folks to live in so that they can either live here part-time and have you know, because folks do travel quite a bit of ways to come in working for us. Or I've really encouraged my employees and helped them in different ways to get into a mortgage over the years. So I get it, because we want folks to feel like they have roots, they have a place to be. And so as an employer, I have done that as well, because we do hear that in the community. Employers should be taking care of their employees and finding places for people to work if we're looking for workforce. So that is something I've done. Trying to think of something else I wanted to hit on. Definitely challenging, but we're not the only resort area that finds that this difficulty with the high prices of land and high prices and the values. People were not from our group, but there are smaller properties that have been taken over by, you know, the Airbnbs. So people that have owned that might have rented year round are now making more money renting a weekly or on a short-term basis. And our community, unlike some towns, haven't overly regulated that because of the fact that this community was built sort of on vacation homes. People are familiar with them, but there is that real push-pull on that tug between, well, where's the resident versus the vacationer, and also personal property rights, which you have to really always keep in mind. So I'm hoping that with all this dialogue, that towns will kind of maybe loosen up regulations that we have for zoning. Maybe it's a setback change that would allow more ADUs. You know, maybe there's creative ways to talk about more than one, you know, one family in a residence. Or I've often thought of an older couple, an older family that might welcome having another person live in their home with them, but it's not, you know, and allowing that more publicly. I'm not sure where those pushes are, but some change in our zoning and our regulations are going to have to kind of keep pace with this totally limited supply. And then the free market has to be involved too. You can't you know, even when you make affordable housing or housing that would apply to workforces, you're putting deed restrictions on them. I think those are kind of interesting, but deed restrictions that we've seen in communities like I think Aspen or Vail have really worked for them, whereby, hey, if you're in this housing, you can stay in it, but then you've got to promise to sell it back into this pool of workforce housing. So some deed restrictions, and I think Chris mentioned maybe some tax incentives, things that the community can do to promote the idea of building an extra unit or allowing extra units in their home. So a lot of work to be done. I don't know, I think I probably went over my time, but that's just, I'm definitely thinking about this problem all the time and trying to find ways that we can improve the supply so that younger families can be here, not just the retirees.
Thank you very much, Monica. I'll go ahead and turn it over to you, Michael.
It's tough to follow both Monica and Chris. Chris hit on all the big aspects as far as the values that we have here in our land. And being a realtor and a commissioner, kind of like you, Monica, it's interesting. I am also, let me go back because I know you asked to speak. My name is Mike Sears, Commissioner Nags Head. I am a business owner on a small real estate firm here as well, and have the privilege of being a commissioner in Nags Head and working on this task force. And so I get to see a lot. Now I'm on the planning committee for the task force. So to hit back on what I think Chris said about the land trust, we are looking into that from the task force standpoint right now. Legislation has been the biggest hurdle when it comes to what we're doing on the task force as far as finding property. It's great to see the two planners that are in the audience today, and I'm sure they're, agreeing and disagreeing with some of the zoning that you mentioned, Monica, when it comes to the setbacks along those ways. But all of that is important, and there's going to have to be, I kind of say, an open mindset to make any of this happen. Dare County is unique in the aspect that over 90% of the land is owned by government. So when you mention there's not much land left, it's not that there's not land left. There's not private land left. It's all government land that is left. And this planning committee that we're working on, I see a fellow member in that as well, Mr. Payne, in the audience. We've actually identified several pieces of property that are owned by the county, and looking to secure that so that we don't have that land cost, that heavy cost there. And then from that point, we can go with a less costly building opportunity that one of the builders in the audience might come up with a solution for. And if she does that, then we'll have both elements needed to actually have affordable housing. Density is going to be a problem, like Chris spoke about. We're on septic. That's the reason your ADUs don't work. Even if you gave them more setbacks, you probably can't put the septic on there, which is all interesting because I think there is solutions. Like you mentioned, Summit County, Colorado has got all the solutions, and people are actually applying for housing just to get jobs. And if you don't have a job, you can't have a house. So they don't ever have lack of workers out there. If you talk to anybody on their 3-person commissioner board, you would be amazed how much they do and work towards that. But overall, I think if anything, I wish we would have had one of a planner just to come in from the zoning angle on this, because that is the biggest question. And without changes to zoning in some level, either more density, setbacks, Nags Head's, I won't say the worst. We keep our density very minimal, and it's been that way ever since Nags Head was developed. So I doubt very seriously you will see much in that line, but there is some zoning room when it comes to duplexes. I mean, if we're going to build an 8-bedroom house, why can't we build 2 4s on the same lot? And that would change the affordability for that. Or even not just 2 4s, maybe we build 3 3s or 3 2s. But all of that is options if we get past the square we like to put everybody in when it comes to how can we solve a problem. Well, we've identified the problem. Chris said it earlier, some of these jobs don't pay enough for the area. We have to increase that. Nags Head, we've increased our salary and are looking to do increasing our employee salaries and looking to do that again in 26. We've also taken upon ourselves to build task force housing or workforce housing. We just completed a duplex, 8 total bedrooms on our own land for our lifeguards, and it'll be used for other employees if needed. And then we're getting ready to start another 8 bedrooms, and that should be completed by this time next year. So, I mean, as a town, we're moving forward to supply our workers with some housing options. And I think that's just looking outside the box, trying to figure out how we can make something happen with what we have within the legislation. And the legislation is the hardest obstacle that the task force is working around. So I'm excited about the task force. I'm excited about our leadership in that and what Donna's done. and Malcolm's done to get us there, and the team effort that's been put together. I think Chris being on that task or coming in and speaking has really helped, from what I understand, on the fundraising side. And then the counties also give us, won't say the promise, but they've also said they're going to give us a little money towards that. So when you're looking at everything, it's a team effort. It is a marathon, like Chris said. So the more we can talk about it, the more we bring things out, the more that we dive into it. I think as a team, we can make all this come together and we'll have a solution. I don't have much else, Denzel.
Well, I appreciate all three of you, Christopher, Monica, and Michael, for sharing your perspective. I really want to dive in deeper on this with you probably offline as well. Really interested in your task force and what that model will look like, something that maybe we can share with the other communities that we'll be talking with. We are intentionally trying to create or work with the governor's office to create a housing task force in the General Assembly, more right-leaning led with some left-leaning folks in there in the House and the Senate to essentially have a working group that can push policy. And so I have some questions, but I'm the moderator, so I want to give and open up the floor to everybody else in the room who may have a question or some things that may have been spoken. And if you want to to come off mute, raise your hand, feel free. We have some wonderful minds here, share a lot of information. And so I wanted to give anybody else an opportunity to ask a question or something that might have a comment that might have spoken or spoke to you. Feel free. The time is now. All right. Seems like everybody's okay. All right.
It would have been nice if we had had an answer,
Yeah.
so
It's all right.
anybody has the answer.
All right. So no one has a question, none safe. Okay. So well, I'm very curious in terms of, so we tried to push the ADU bill in the General Assembly this year. It didn't make it out of the House. It passed last year for whatever reason, and it fell to, I don't know, internal cannibalism political cannibalism is what we called it at this point. I'm curious because there's been this notion, and maybe the three of you can give some insight around local control and non-local control. We have tried to advocate for a new standard is kind of how we tried to position this because we know certain cities are doing great things. We want to support those cities that are doing great things, those counties that are doing great things. But I'm curious, I guess, from an inside policy person perspective, what other things would you need or you feel could be assisted that maybe the state level doesn't see because, of course, they're not in your area. They don't understand the problems that I've noticed, right, when I'm dealing more rural communities who don't have the compaction of issue of land like you all have are completely different than the folks, who stay on the coast who are considering like we have to build up because we have nothing else we can do. So I'm curious what maybe some insight that you could provide for me and I can take back and roll over to our folks as to some things that we can think about, what strategies, what tactics, what, if anything, that might work, a policy that you've seen and said, this would actually be good here.
Well, I think that what we're seeing is just such different challenges in different areas. I mean, you go 30 miles in to Columbia or to further in into Plymouth and along 64, it's a whole different landscape. It's a whole different. You'd think folk, and there have been things projects in the past that have looked in there, and there is housing being developed there that, but the commute is just a little bit too much for people to feel as part of the Outer Banks community, I'm guessing, but market forces haven't caught up, in those areas. So, but when I look at areas, and then of course we've seen Currituck neighboring county of Currituck really explode on the northern end with development kind of just as becoming really an annex to all the development in the Norfolk area, Hampton Roads. But we're pretty remote. And so the drive to distance just does isolate us somewhat. But then you get into when you talk about state policy, I think of the septic issue with the fact that there was trying to make a one size fits all for septic regulation, and that was just not really good for us because we are we are different. You know, our soil quality is different. Our septics do very well here, and if you were gonna, you know, try to over regulate our septic, it would really it would hamper us even more in terms of what we could do. So luckily that all got changed. And so I don't know if you have any thoughts, Mike, in terms of like overarching one size fits all type of policy. I do love the idea of a state force that's kind of devoted to, you know, state-led housing task force that's sort of thinking about all the different challenges, because what's going to be a challenge for one area is going to be completely different from another. We are so diverse, you know, and I think our development constraints, because we don't have septic systems generally, are is definitely been a big issue for us. But Mike, I don't know if you have anything to add on that or any other thoughts.
No, I think it's the one size fits all with ADUs as well. I mean, it's a perfect idea to have that. And then I think what the county's done is you can have that ADU, you can't rent it, short-term rental, and that's may or may not be the solution. You know, that would be a question more for Mr. Gillum. But otherwise, we are unique. The septic controls so much, lot coverage controls so much more, that a lot of what we try to do is limited by those two factors. And with those two factors being, even if you bumped it to 40% in KDH, it's even, I think it's 45 on some size lots in KDH. And I'm not exactly sure. It might still be 30% in duck, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So when you talk about all of your lot coverage being that tight, it's very difficult to slide another ADU in on the property or expand it for any reason, with the septic included. So yeah, you got to really think outside of the box on that.
I'll definitely be following up with you. I'm going to ask again, just in case I ask another question. Anyone else have any questions? Anything got sparked that anyone would like to ask a question for or about? Or I see. Go ahead, Matt. Oh, I saw Noah's come off mute, I guess. And then I saw Maslin.
Yeah. To echo what Mike was saying, I mean, the biggest hurdle we see with the ADU, we've had ADU language now in all of our zoning districts, probably going on 4 years now. We started ADUs in 2018 and 2019. The biggest hurdle we see with it is the cost of construction. We have a size limitation of 1,200 square feet on our ADUs. I mean, right now, talking to contractors, it's $275 a square foot to build a house. You know, so if you build a 1,000 square foot house, you charge somebody $1,500 a month rent, you're looking at 15 years before you ever return a profit on your investment. And I don't know too many people that can go, you know, just pull $275,000 out to build the ADU while still paying their mortgage. That's the biggest hurdle we see. I mean, we allow a 38% lot coverage if you build the ADU, and we do have the restriction on it that it has to be for long-term occupancy. The ones we see getting built are either employers building it for their employees, or it's family members building it for their children so they can return and live and work here. But just the average person going and building a second house in their backyard, we're not seeing that really progress at a rapid rate.
Good to know. Thank you for that, Noah. Maslin, I saw you come off. If I heard I say your name right.
Maslin, yeah, thank you. Mike, you touched on the county allowing ADUs in exchange for saying you can't rent it short term. It was my impression that the state took away the ability for local government to regulate short-term rentals in that way. And to me, that's the big stumbling block for ADUs, is that you can build an ADU on your property and then rent it out short term. It doesn't do any net benefit for workforce housing. Is that the case? Am I incorrect there?
Noah just answered, I think, that question. Noah, can you give her that answer again, please?
I don't think the state has limited your ability to regulate the length of occupancy. I think the state came in and regulated you being able to I think they mandated I think it started out in Asheville. There was some change in the legislation regarding the registering and restricting them across the board. I'd have to go back and look at that, but I believe you're still allowed to regulate the occupancy length.
Yeah. And Nags Head, we were asking everybody to fill out more or less an application for a short-term rental, and that was because we wanted to know where all the Airbnbs actually were. You know, you're involved in rental companies or have been involved in rental companies, and every single rental company or rental house short-term has the address, the phone number, where every emergency contact should be. A lot of Airbnbs didn't, and that was the reason that, and Nags Head a few years back, we did that. And then we changed that because there was a lawsuit over how you could or couldn't. Is that what you're thinking of, or?
Well, I think that's the problem, is none of us are quite sure. I recall in Southern Shores, they were saying the homeowners associations, if they want to have restrictions, they should make those on their own, because the ability of the municipality was limited there. So maybe we're not clear on what the law is, what we are allowed to regulate.
And I think you see per township, every town's a little different in their ordinances as well, which makes it very difficult. Builders complain to me about that all the time. You know, I can get by with this in Duck or Get Over Hills, but you can't do it in Nags Head. So that's always a possible thing.
Yeah, and I think there are some homeowners associations that have put restrictions on short-term rentals, which is kind of, like I said before, our community is mostly open to that, or has been, just because of the way way we've developed here. But then that pressure point on the more usually previously residential houses that have been used as now using as short-term rentals has really put a squeeze on it. One point I thought was a positive was when Kitty Hawk, another one of our towns, I think it was Kitty Hawk, that added a ability to do an ADU on a commercial property, because, you know, maybe that's and that's allowing folks that are on these commercial areas to put some residential on. We have that ability here in Duck, and the building I actually am in right now, I've started off with 2 residential units, and we expanded our offices into those. And I often am sorry that had to happen all these years ago, because I know it would be a place for somebody to live, just an apartment. But going back to what Kitty Hawk recently did, it seems like a nice opportunity for, you know, areas that are worried about that density, or worried about extra houses, or people, the density, that this is an area where people can have some extra units. And I think building up on commercial properties is something that might, you know, could also be considered, simply because there is room there. But
We allow that in Nags Head as well. I just think goes back to what Noah was saying. The cost of construction for that probably doesn't return that investment, even though they're giving a place to live to the investor in that particular case.
mm-hmm.
All right. We had a note, I think Ed Holloway wrote, that placeable homes, we can cut the cost square foot down dramatically with modular ADUs. So maybe there's a conversation that you all might want to introduce there. I just want to give space. And anyone else have any other questions? We are at 150. Want to give enough for anyone else have another question or thought they want to share. I did want to mention, because my colleague who works in Texas got phenomenal legislation passed in Texas this year, and one of the dialogues was around commercial development spaces and being able to make those convertible for apartments or other types of housing. Just out of curiosity, you folks in that space, is that something worth pursuing? You know, and of course there's no one size fits all. I'm trying as best as possible to be as adaptable and optionable for every, because we have a very unique state in its typography, and trying to make sure that we're doing things that could work for folks in the mountains, and then folks in the central North Carolina, and also folks on the coast. So but this conversation around taking commercial spaces, strip malls, all those, and reconverting them for build right spaces is something that's been coming up a lot. And so I'm curious, what does that look or feel like for you all in your areas? just for me personally.
Well, Dare County, again, we just like Monica and Michael were saying, we do allow on commercial properties. We call it a workforce housing unit. If you have a commercial property, you could go in there and build a workforce housing unit for your employees. Most of our commercial districts do allow a level of density for multifamily development. So that already exists in the unincorporated portions of Dare County.
Good to know. Good to know. All right. Well, thank you for that, Noah. It's good. It's good. I can take that talking point for possibilities to the General Assembly this upcoming session. Is there any way, I guess, it's just a matter of curiosity, just made that, we want to make sure if there's anything, I know we can have this conversation afterwards, but from you experts in the spaces that we can maybe leverage or help you in the areas of fine point or conversation points that you may want us to have. I mean, we sit right in the intersection. I'm here based in Raleigh, North Carolina. So kind of one foot in talking to the General Assembly, another foot in talking to the governor's office, trying to kind of get the governor to lean in a little bit more on some concepts. So is there anything that you all, just you say, hey, if you could take this one piece back, we would appreciate this, Denzel. Actually, I had a call after this with the housing advocacy person for the governor's office. So I love to get it from Chris, Monica, and then I also get your final thoughts.
Stay in contact.
We'll
Right.
do that. I would definitely do that.
Right. And kind of any initiatives that you're doing with just keeping everybody informed, I think is, and vice versa, as we make some progress on our task force, or just information that we can funnel over to you, just so you're tapped into what we've been trying to work on. It's been a slow process. There's a lot of learning to go, a lot of consensus building, identifying, where the problem points are. And I think, as I said before, everyone seems to be able to really get their arms around taking care of our educators and our public safety folks that work for the county. And, at a minimum, that's where everyone can really understand it and get behind it. And that's good work that's being done in Manio that Chris mentioned. So we just need to keep on celebrating our successes, or, as we've seen just with Maslin saying that she wasn't sure, we've got some work to do here in terms of getting our, maybe that would be another thing we could do, is just pull our regulations together here so that everybody has like a real good overview of what is permissible, what we're doing. And maybe celebrating some successes, maybe making a big deal of it when somebody builds an ADU, give people some ideas. Hey, this is working. This is just one little brick in the big wall that we're trying to come up with here.
Definitely.
And
Mike, go ahead, Chris. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, and sharing ideas from other parts of the state. At this conference, I was seated next to the CEO of a new land trust organization for Western North Carolina, and I can't wait to put this person in touch with Donna Creef, because they're 4 steps ahead of where Donna is in starting a nonprofit for housing. So ideas from the outside world can really lead to some great things.
Yeah, definitely.
If I may, for a second.
Sure.
Benji Flanagan, UNC School of Government, Our State, Our Homes. I know Donna and Malcolm, and we are doing the best we can to share information between Dare County and all of the teams on the Our State, Our Homes program. And Dare has been great to work with, as have the other teams. And we look forward to continuing collaboration with Dare County.
Great.
Thank you.
Great resource.
Yes, please lean on us any and all you can. We'll help where we can.
Thank you very much, man. Mike?
Hey, I think it was great, Denzel. Thanks for putting all this together. And the more we talk about it, the quicker we can achieve something.
Definitely. Well, we are at 1:56. I just want to say thank you to all of you for being in attendance. Like I said, we are the North Carolina Housing Table. We're going to be doing these webinars throughout the end of the year, and hopefully be doing some in-person roundtable dinner and conversations, trying to get better understanding, because it is a state that has a lot of diverse spaces, and trying to be able to understand how we can help and support in tackling this problem. We keep mentioning this, that North Carolina is behind about 700,000 homes that need to be built in various different places. And so I didn't get a chance to really get in to the question. I was curious about how you all are building in this space around hurricane preparation and all those things. But after what took place in West North Carolina, we kind of kept having this conversation around the potentiality of movement around the state because of what's happening with our weather patterns. So I just want to say thank you to Christopher, thank you to Monica, thank you to Michael, thank you to Noah, additionally for adding on, and Benjamin, and all of you being here. If there's anything we can do, feel free to reach back out to us. And this session is closed now. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Denzel.